Death in video games is often used as a plot device to evoke emotion from the player, and there have been plenty that have left a lasting impression. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at the top 10 saddest and most impactful deaths in video games. To start at number 10, we have Elizabeth from the Burial at Sea DLC in Bioshock Infinite. This DLC sees Elizabeth travel to Rapture to get rid of the last remaining Comstock, ultimately ending up meeting a gruesome fate at the hands of Atlas, the villain from the original game. In exchange for the safety of a little sister called Sally, who she feels guilty about abandoning earlier in the story, Elizabeth does what Atlas wants her to, but afterwards, he has no use for her anymore and brutally beats her with a wrench, leaving her stuck in the depths of Rapture for good, giving her a sad and cruel death she really didn't deserve. At number 9 we have Zack Fair in Crisis Core. The ending of the game sees Zack valiantly taking on an endless wave of Shinra soldiers and eventually succumbing to their numbers, with Cloud waking up to see his brother in arms taking his last few breaths, declaring him as his living legacy and bestowing upon him the iconic Buster Sword. Zack Fair's death was not only well executed, but pivotal in that it shaped Cloud as a person and led to the events that happened in Final Fantasy VII itself. Of course, that's not taking into account the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, without giving away any spoilers, put a spanner in the works to say the least. And number 8 is Chloe Price from Life is Strange. This is one of those deaths that is made all the more painful as you, the player, have the ability to choose to save her at the cost of Arcadia Bay and its people. If you do choose to save Arcadia Bay instead, you have to watch as Max goes back in time to the very start of the game, where she originally reversed her death at the hands of Nathan Prescott, and allow that moment to play out again, only without intervening. This is especially difficult as she has the ability to stop it, and also means that all the time they spent together essentially didn't happen. Number 7 goes to Dom Santiago in Gears of War 3. Dom had a particularly difficult time throughout the series. Not only had he tirelessly searched for his wife, only to find she had been tortured to the point of a vegetative, unrecognisable state in Gears 2, but in 3, he was forced to sacrifice his life in order to save the rest of the crew by driving a truck into a fuel tank. The moment was particularly tough for players as Mad World begins to play in the background as we see Marcus mourn the loss of his old friend with nothing he could do to save him. Number 6 is Wonder from Shadow of the Colossus. Over the course of the game, Wonder tracks down and kills 16 Colossi with the understanding that doing so will help bring a loved one back to life. However, come the ending, it's revealed that these Colossi were in fact protectors of various pieces of an evil entity called Dormin, which by killing them he's absorbed, allowing Dormin to slowly infect and take over his body. While Wonder's loved one is brought back to life, he essentially dies and is reborn as a baby, never really reuniting with her, at least not in the way he wanted. Number 5 is the second character from the Final Fantasy VII universe, Aerith. For many, this is probably one of the first deaths in a video game that had a profound effect on them, and is easily one of the most iconic moments from any game of the 90s, with Sephiroth appearing out of nowhere and plunging his blade through her chest. Sure, the scene is dated now, but back when it was released, it looked great and was really unexpected. Even though Aerith is currently alive in the 2020 remake, we might all have to relive her death with much greater realism in the next part, no doubt making it an even harder pill to swallow. And number 4 is John Marston from Red Dead Redemption. The ending of the game sees Edgar Ross, along with a group of men, double-cross and corner John and his family in their barn. With no way out for all of them, John says goodbye to his family and tells them to escape out the back, knowing full well that confronting Edgar is a suicide mission. Not only was the lead up to John's death fairly unexpected, but the brutality of his depiction was quite shocking, showing Marston peppered in bullet holes and covered in blood as he collapses to the floor. Number 3 is Arthur Morgan from the prequel Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan starts out the game as an unlikable, cruel and ruthless person, but throughout the story we see some real character development from him as he reflects upon his actions and questions his allegiance to Dush's gang. Sadly, due to events early on, he contracts tuberculosis, and as the game continues, he gradually succumbs to the illness more and more. Despite this, at least in 2 of the main endings, he still tries to do what is right, and and buys John Marston some time to get away as he fights against the Pinkertons and Micah before passing away. Number 2 is Sarah from The Last of Us. This death occurs within the first hour as Joel and Sarah attempt to escape from a sudden infection outbreak, but are met with a soldier who has orders to shoot anyone he comes across. They attempt to get away, but both of them plummet to the floor, with Sarah unfortunately being hit by one of the bullets. What makes this death so sad is Joel's reaction as he helplessly clutches his dying daughter in his arms as she screams in pain and fades away. It's also an incredibly impactful death, setting the tone for the rest of the game, with Joel protecting and caring for Ellie as if she was his own daughter, even at the cost of potentially finding a cure. Lastly, in number 1 is Lee from The Walking Dead Season 1. Kind of in a similar way to The Last of Us, Lee comes across and ends up looking after a young girl called Clementine. Over the course of the game, he becomes a father figure to her, teaching her vital skills she would need in order to survive the now treacherous, zombie-filled world. Sadly, Lee gets bitten by a walker in episode 4, ultimately leading to him and Clementine in an abandoned store, with him in the final phase before changing at the end of episode 5. During his final moments, they say their goodbyes, and depending on your choices, Lee asks her to shoot him before he turns, leaving poor old Clementine with the terrible choice of having to shoot the closest person to her or allow him to become a walker, reducing every player to an emotional wreck. That's it for today. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for a notification each time a video goes live. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.